There's no bins, there's no toilets, there's just no facilities.
Hi everyone, welcome back again. My name is Mamobo Ogoro, and this is Gorm TV. We are a web show and creative network that dissects the social issues that affect Ireland's multicultural generation. So today I have my wonderful panelists here again, and we're going to be talking about something that's quite new in Ireland. We're going to be talking about an outdoor summer. So recently the world has been opening up a bit more we're still in, but during COVID-19 pandemic. And what we've seen is that as the restrictions lessen and lessen and lessen in our immediate society, that people are going out more, but we're not allowed to be inside in mass gatherings. People are left to be outside having, I'd say, restaurants outside, gatherings outside and things like that. But a lot of times we've seen that we are kind of a bit unprepared for it. And do you think it's the people to blame for this, or are there more that the outside forces can do to help us? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I kind of want to start off the question as has the outdoor summer proven a good idea for, let's say, Ireland in general? If anyone wants to start off with that question.
I don't know that the Irish need to be told to congregate for a drink and a good time. But it's a good idea to sort of get community spirit going again, I think. After over a year of isolation now at this point, it's a good idea. Now, whether the weather, works with us will remain to be seen. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. Now, are we prepared for this outdoor summer? Well, I guess that's what we're here to discuss.
And Garrett, what do you think about that as well? Do you think we are? Do you think this outdoor summer is a good idea? Do you think we're prepared for it?
I think to a certain extent, you walk through the cities and you have the outdoor benches, you have the aesthetic. But as Tavi was saying, will the weather match up? The one thing that's always fascinated about me about Irish society is that it rains every single summer, yet we always plan for 20 degrees, not a cloud to be seen in the sky kind of thing. And then when it rains, we go, damn, we just did not see that coming, even though it's been like this since time began. So I think to an extent we're never ready for an outdoor summer, but I'm kind of hoping this kind of pushes it out. And once we see the tried and tested methods of putting a few benches and chairs outside doesn't work, that it might kind of push, I don't know, people much bigger than us in the world to fund more kind of, what should be more permanent and more kind of sustainable means of staying outside.
I understand that it's really great that we have this sort of push for people to be meeting again. Okay, not in huge mass congregations. Okay, I beg to differ. I've seen a lot of people in certain areas, but it's kind of nice to see that we're kind of moving into meeting each other in person again and things like that. But I know that, and I've seen it on Twitter and things like that, there was, let's say, complaints as to a lack of facilities, let's say outdoor toilets or bins or things like that. And then this has left the streets just completely thrashed with dirt and things like that. So I just kind of want to ask, even though that the government, they gave this sort of, they gave us the allowance to, let's say, go out a bit more, see a bit more, obviously not have the indoor dining and things like that. Do you think the government were prepared for the outcomes of an outdoor summer? Shane, what do you think about that?
Yeah, they're definitely not prepared, and I don't think there's any evidence to suggest otherwise. I think we've seen in recent weeks as things have started to kind of open up and people have started to meet outdoors. Through the videos that we've seen on social media, there's absolutely no preparation. There's no bins, there's no toilets, there's just no facilities. We've been constantly told to kind of go outdoors, but yes, the kind of, I suppose, the media, government, etc. I think a lot of the blame and a lot of the onus has actually been put on individuals and young people in particular, who have made the biggest probably sacrifices throughout the lockdowns, and not for themselves, for older generations. And this blame has been passed on them, but yet the facilities just have not been prepared for them.
No, definitely. And Sandrine, what would you say? What were your thoughts on this kind of thing as well?
Oh yeah, no, I agree with what everyone said. Like, I think at the start, like as an extrovert, I was delighted when we were able to like meet. I think there's only so much time I could watch Netflix inside, but then it's like once, like as Shane was saying, like once you go out, it's kind of like it just makes you want to like just stay inside more, because like let's say like yes, go out to like go for drinks with your friends in the park, like there's no bathroom, there's nothing there, so like you are kind of, the lack of facilities is making you being like, okay, I actually would rather have something like, let's say in my back garden, which again that causes like causative effect, because then like with the local businesses, they're losing out because people don't want to go and get like takeaway drinks, like where you're just going to be walking around in town the whole time. And like I was recently in Cork, and it's literally like again there, like there was no facilities there, or like even bins around for people to put things around. And like when there's guards walking around there, like like they make you pour out your drink. And like I've seen that on Twitter, like where people are like, let's just walking home from like work, and it's like, oh, I don't trust what you have in your cup, so like pour that out. So it is kind of exposing that like distrust even with the police, because like they're there, but then you're like, okay, are you here to kind of make sure that everyone is keeping the peace? Because for any time I've been out, like everyone is like staying in their own little small groups, like no one is interacting. But like the moment you see the guards, and it kind of, I don't know, like brings that up. But then also like the lack of preparation, it is showing like in regards to different like environmental issues, like the I think it was a few weeks ago we saw on Twitter in regard to what happened in Dublin, and just all the rubbish out there. Like, and you saw people defending themselves, but like, look, I did bring out like a plastic bag, but then it's like, you're gonna bring that, but like there's no place for you to put it, so you just gotta be walking around town with that. So like straight away, if you read any of the comments, like it put like a really bad name for young people in regards to like, oh, so like you tell us to stay inside, then it's not. Then it's like, oh, go outside. But when you go outside, it's like, oh, you're literally causing climate change and global warming just by drinking in your takeaway cup. So like there's kind of like that sense that there's like no win for any of it. So then it's like, then you are just pushing, just drink in your own back garden.
No, definitely. And we've seen like a lot of young people, like Shane said, being blamed for this kind of activity when it's not, to be honest. And it's more of a wider problem rather than that. And going back to like the businesses as well, Tabby, how do you think this would affect, let's say, small businesses and people trying to get back into business for that, where like, let's say government authority are telling people, oh, you can't be doing this now, and then people would be disencouraged to, let's say, even go out again?
It actually even goes deeper than that, because 3 days ago there was a report on RTE about how the council in Galway, there's some sort of red tape in terms of they've told businesses to sort of expand their outdoor seating area to accommodate the changes, but then they have to like fit specific dimensions, and if they don't, then you have to apply for planning permission. And it's just like, now is when we want to introduce red tape? Like, and I think there was actually similarly in Donegal as well. So I honestly do feel really, really bad for the businesses, in the sense that people that I don't want to go out, I haven't gone out once, even for takeaway drinks, just because I've no interest in, almost giving myself a bladder infection. I'd much rather just stay at home, and and indulge that way, because there isn't. And again, this is all just, I suppose, come to fore, and highlighted all the bad decisions that have led to this point. And while researching this topic, I realized that the people who are making these decisions are getting paid more than the Prime Minister of the UK, which just blew my mind. It's like, so sorry, you're getting paid more than Prime Minister of the UK, and we can't have a couple of extra bins in the canal, when you know right well the minute this, like, the temperature is 22 degrees, real feel 14, everyone's out. Everyone's out on the piss. So surely you would, take steps to accommodate that. So I do think, like Sandrine said, it has sowed a lot of seeds of distrust. And I think, to be honest with you, the reason I haven't been out is because when we were first allowed to go out, I'd actually met my friend Jason at Portobello. So we all know the whole Portobello scandal and the Portaloos, and it was just the two of us just catching up after I think almost a year of not seeing each other. And we had our little pints, we had our cans in our bags, and a guard came along and he was like, "Okay, lads, you can't have open containers in public." And sure enough, we were like, "That's fine, we'll spilled it out, put it in the bin." Resumed chatting, and then a second guarder who seemed to be more senior came along, went through my bag, and actually disposed of the unopened cans. And I kind of thought to myself, well, hang on a minute, how do you know that I wasn't on my way home from Tesco's, with a couple of cans for me to enjoy later when I get home? And that was the assumption. And I just wasn't in the mind frame, or I did not have the energy to advocate for myself or whatever. So I just kind of let it go. But it really soured the mood. But and as much as we can say, let's not blame the young people, we have to acknowledge the handful of scroats, that we've all seen the videos of, on Twitter, who are obviously the exception, but they are sort of giving this all a bad name.
And how do you think we can, and this could be a question to everyone, how do you think we can sort of combat that bad name that those people on the fringes are giving young people?
Give them access to facilities. I personally have been at war with Dublin City Council myself. This is going to sound so petty, but I sit across from an Astro that was purpose built, I think maybe 2 years ago now at this point, for the kids. It cost about over €1 million to build. Mary Freehill was a big advocate for this Astro that's been closed down since restrictions were lifted. So I had emailed the council to say, I'm sitting here at my home office facing the window, and I'm watching kids as young as 5 and as old as 16 climb this 10-foot metal wall to access the Astro that's there for them. Why is it closed? And I literally had to email all of my local councillor, only heard back from 2. And the reason was, seemingly they've been closed because of noise complaints. And it's like, well, when you were spending £1 million to erect an Astro, what was the expectation in terms of noise when you surrounded it with a metal cage? And furthermore, is it going to remain closed forever? Was that just a waste of £1 million? And the answer was like, no, we're going to have to spend more money to soundproof it. And it's just all these little incompetent decisions that I think everybody has kind of had time to sit back and look at. So the answer is yes, give people what they're asking for. Give us outdoor areas, give us purpose-built outdoor areas, like, for example, the Ivy Gardens, where you could, in theory, have enough noise without residential disturbance, because it's essentially surrounded by the concert hall and the offices, So give people places like Marion Park or Marion Square, where they can go and enjoy themselves when the sun rarely shines, So it was really, really crappy of the powers that be to recognize that people had been indoors and, like Shane said, made sacrifices for others, only to be told, well, sorry, no, you actually can't come out and enjoy yourselves, even though we told you could.
It just shows really like a lack of, not acknowledgement, but a lack of, I can't find the right word right now, but just this idea that these little things were not thought about by the people that are, like, let's say, leading these sort of conversations or leading the opening of society. So it's really essential that we really start to think of these.
I'm just going to interrupt you to say, I don't think that it wasn't thought about. I think what this conversation ultimately is for Dublin is, and even just at a wider scale, is monetary value versus cultural value, because the spaces are there, they're just being knocked down to build student accommodation, boutique hotels, left, right, and center. So I don't think that they've necessarily not been thought of. I just think that at the minute, the monetary value outweighs the cultural value.
And do you think going to Gareth, do you think that would be like this sort of idea that the powers at bay, like Tavi was saying, do you think that this sort of idea of not valuing let's say the people's ideas, the people's wants and wishes, and not facilitating that to the extent. Do you think that would be something, the direction that we're going in terms of the new world that we're seeing post-COVID? Do you think this outdoor kind of summer is the thing that we're going to see post-COVID, or how do you think we're going to be in terms of mass gatherings and things like that?
I think what Tabby's been saying has been pretty spot on, to be honest. There seems to be a lot more focus on the economic rather than, I don't know, the social or the cultural. Like the solution to like mass gatherings so far, it has been shut down the space where they're gathering rather than providing the necessary supports that they need to gather in a safe manner. Like I think COVID has shown us that like we need more outdoor spaces, we need more amenities. It's really shown how like almost privatized like amenities have become. Like if you're not spending money, what is there for you to do? And you're criminalized for like just having a drink with your friend, not like doing any harm to anyone. So I think for like an outdoor summer to be sustainable, it needs to be more future thinking. It needs to be like build more beds. Like there's a whole open space in Limerick that people used to gather, and it was a huge open space that they could easily put in bins, benches, like all the necessary protections for people to gather there in a safe manner. But instead of that, they just shut it down because of mass gatherings. Like there's such potential here to like get these huge open spaces that are rarely used, maybe for the odd concert or the odd performance or whatever, to actually like still use them for those purposes, but then in the off seasons use them for just gatherings, just for people to meet their friends in a safe manner. And I think we're thinking very short term in the sense of, oh, this is just for when COVID's here. Once it's fine, we'll all go back to the cafes, the restaurants, the pubs. But like this has shown that like we need more almost like free spaces, more kind of parks, more just spaces where you don't necessarily need to spend money, where you could arrive with your own coffee from home or your own drinks from Tesco, and in a very safe manner, just meet with people. So I think we're lacking the sustainable mindset. And people say, oh, like young people like bringing out, leaving their rubbish behind is ruining the environment. Yeah, there's an individual responsibility, but we all know what it's like once you have a few drinks in you. You could be the blessed saint on the planet and suddenly that all goes out the window. So I think we need to think a lot more sustainably about how this is going to happen. Because who's to say, like, we all act like, oh, COVID, once it's over, we'll all go back to normal. Wants to say, like, a new strain of something appears in 5 years' time, and like we're back to square one of everyone locked in their house. Like, I don't want to be like negative about it, but like you have to be realistic. And if this has happened once, like it could happen again. So it's time to be sustainable about it and not pretend like this is just a once-off.
No, definitely, and really think ahead, I would say as well. And I think it's really important that we do provide those spaces where people could, safe spaces where people could congregate, people could meet their friends and not be, let's say, for lack of a better term, demonized for being what humans are, which are social beings. So I think it's really important that we have the facilities and the amenities to actually do that. So just before we get going, does anyone have sort of like final touches, final says on how we can get sort of that sort of approach across?
I think the People's Park in Dunleary, maybe it's a personal opinion, is the blueprint for the kind of spaces that we're looking for. It's well taken care of. There's ample bins, all kinds of bin, recycling, general waste, all of that. There are toilets that you can access with, you know, a coin that are relatively clean. So it's like there is a blueprint there. It's just how do we get all the councils to agree, you know? Maybe it needs to be a thing where it's not at council level, because these are not elected people. These are CEOs who are just, you know, have been appointed in those roles and are making, you know, almost 200,000 a year. And I think they can be interim for about 10 years or something like that. So maybe if it's an elected position, people may be inclined to be listened to, you know. Whoever it is that wants that role is probably more inclined to listen to what the people want and what the people need.
Definitely. And it's really important that we get there. Does anyone have any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just think I agree with what Gareth was saying, to just kind of make more long-term goals when it comes to outdoor dining, because as Gareth said, like it shouldn't be something that's like, oh, will only be until I think while we're allowed indoors dining on the 5th of July. Like, you know, it's like it's only 2 more weeks, then you'll go back to normal. Because like for some different communities, like maybe this has been the only way to kind of like enjoy that summer, and being able to like actually afford to go and meet up with friends and bring your own drink. So like it is kind of to think about it in that way, and to be like, okay, how do we then like protect and create those spaces where, again, like guards are not going up and down, like making everyone pour their things. But then also just I think even in the parks, I'd seen it in on Twitter, like just how even with the benches, you've seen how more of the benches have all been designed now to be disability friendly. And again, it's kind of like, oh, would we have done this without COVID? So like it is kind of seeing that, being like, okay, how to make even outdoor spaces more accessible to people from those communities. So it is kind of like, it shouldn't just be something to be like, okay, it's like this up until July and then we'll go back to normal, because like, as I said, it has benefited some people. So it should be like a long-term goal for that and to encourage that, because yeah, like there's no saying like, oh, okay, we'll get over COVID, because like it could happen again even next summer. That we should be prepared, and it should be long-term goals instead of just it being like something just to like please the people for like a month and then be like, oh yeah, we're back to restaurants again.
And definitely it should be a definite long-term goal. And thank you so much for your take, Sandrine, there, and thank you so much to the rest of our panelists. Guys, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think like this whole past year and a half has been somewhat traumatizing, and as we're starting to move back to the new world, there are new questions, new conversations, new things that are happening, and new implementations that are happening. And it really comes down to, let's say, the people of power really listening to the people, really putting themselves in the shoes of the people, and really understanding the facilities and amenities that they really need to live, quote unquote, normal again. So thank you so much for this conversation. I hope you really enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye.